The coffee chat is inside, and joining me is QwaQwa.
Good morning, Xoli Mgambi.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, in studio.
We're going to talk about QwaQwa in a moment, but we appreciate that you're back.
Thank you.
And we've got some water for you, but for now you're going to have coffee.
We are very glad.
Good morning, sir.
No, the coffee is always great on the show, I must say.
Thank you.
It's
my
delicious.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Guys, let's get on with the business of the coffee chat. So, Tejo, you were there for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not entirely 3 weeks if you essentially look at the number of days that you spent, but essentially you were there almost every day of the 3 weeks that you spent in QwaQwa. What is the situation there? How are residents coping?
I don't know how they're coping, actually, Xoli, but it's quite bad. I mean, it's quite a sad situation to see a lot of people having to walk kilometers just to get water. I had met a family, a disabled man and a partially blind woman, who walk 14 kilometers, just one trip, 14 kilometers to go get water, and they do that twice in a day. So it ends up being 28 kilometers that they have to walk. And they say...
where are they getting this water from?
They get it from, I think it's one of those fire hydrants, and I mean, we're not quite sure how safe that particular water is either. And you get long queues.
Fire hydrant.
Yes. And you get long queues there where people say that it's the only place that they can get water because they don't have water in their taps. And even if you get those JoJo tanks coming in, sometimes by the time they get to where those tanks are, then they've already run out of water, and then the tanks have to turn back to go fetch more water. So quite a dire situation, actually.
What has government promised?
So Minister Lindiwe Sisulu visited the area, and she then said that they would get water water tanks, JoJo tanks, 5,000 of them by last week, Thursday already. That then didn't happen, and then they moved it to about Tuesday. When I spoke to Sputnik Ratau from the department, he said it would actually happen on Tuesday, which was yesterday. And then that didn't happen either. Instead, they moved it to Monday, and then we waited the full day on Monday, waiting for either the JoJo tanks or the trucks, because then they had then promised that 10 trucks, water trucks, would come in with a 16,000-litre capacity. That then didn't happen, and they only arrived on Tuesday morning, in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Then again, it was only 5 of them, so it was not even the full capacity.
5 water trucks.
Water trucks instead of the 10 that was promised. And by the time we left yesterday, there were still no JoJo tanks in sight.
Just explain to us, these 5,000 water tanks, these are JoJo tanks,
yes.
your green-looking tanks.
Yes.
Where were they going to be sent to? Is it the various households? What exactly was the plan with these water tanks?
Essentially, the plan was to place them strategically at places where people can actually get the water. And they had promised that those JoJo tanks would have taps as well, so it's accessible for everyone. You don't have to wait for a truck for you to actually be able to get water. So they placed them strategically so that each person in the community is actually able to get water and can get to the tank as quickly as possible, specifically as well for the elderly. So that was their plan. When I spoke to the department yesterday, the provincial department yesterday, to ask specifically about these trucks, because they're already there, there isn't necessarily a plan in place right now as to where they're going to place these trucks.
Government, has there been any credible explanation for why none of what has been promised has materialized thus far, except these 5 water trucks that have yet to deliver water to the people?
So when I questioned them about what the plan is and why did it take so long for them to actually come in, I mean, when I spoke to the minister, I said that it'd have to take a child's death for government to actually come in, because you'd remember that was the reason why QwaQwa had a shutdown. And then she said that the plan was always to go to QwaQwa, it's just that it had to be moved. So that was then what happened. But when I asked them about what happened, that you promised 5,000 JoJo tanks by Thursday, there is none of it by Tuesday. And they say it's a matter of processes and procurement processes, because they've given money to the Sidibeng Water Board, and they're the ones that are dealing with the whole procurement of these tanks.
Basically, government red tape
yes.
is standing in the way of people getting the basics
Yes.
And that is water. Sandile, why should the people of QwaQwa believe anything that government says?
Not just the people of QwaQwa, people of SA, you could ask. Just in terms of infrastructure, you look at not only water, you look at electricity, load shedding. There's been talk of water shedding also coming in the future. You look at all manner of SOEs, you look at PRASA, you look at the post office, you look at SAA. It's a litany of problems. And this has been going back till, you probably can't... You can't include the Mandela presidency, but you could probably take it from 1999 onwards, not just in terms of SOEs, in terms of corruption, in terms of allocation of tenders, mismanagement of funds at municipal and local level. There's a whole litany of problems. So the question doesn't just become, is it a Free State problem or QwaQwa problem? Is it an SA problem in general?
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because the water issue with the Free State, it's just that boiled over because a child had died. But I think it's a problem that the whole country is facing.
Yeah.
There is a point where...
And maybe remind the viewers why that child died in the first place. What was actually happening?
So this little girl went to go fetch water. And this water she was going to take back to her family. So as she gets to the river, she's with her older sibling. And as she gets to the river, she tries to obviously get the water, so her sibling helps her. But because of the muddy circumstances and where they're walking, they wanted to wash their shoes before walking back home. And then her shoe fell into the river. And as she tries to grab it, that's when she then fell in as well. So...
And you can also take that back to kids having to cross rivers just to get to school.
Yeah.
Same sort of problems.
Yeah.
Guys, let's see if we can touch on another subject now, and it's a matter of a concern the world over, and that's the coronavirus. And if we look at the front page of the Cape Argus, the story is not actually captured on the stories that are told on that front page. Instead, it's right at the top. It's we have a person that has a face mask there, and it says fake news and panic. Of course, there's been concern around this, but the important bit is that if we are looking closer to home in Botswana, and we need to be careful around the wording of this, is that there are 5 suspected cases of corona. And so those people, as we understand it, they are currently going medical assessment. If it is that closer to home, the concern again will be if it is going to be, as the story has been over the years, if it's that easy to go across South African borders into South Africa, how can we possibly be safe from this kind of thing? It's quite correct that the paper at the top there, it's warning around fake news and, of course, causing unnecessary panic. But do we think that we are secured?
You know, the interesting thing about the coronavirus for me is what government has now said about it, especially for South Africa, and the places that would actually be suitable or that people can get to, the hospitals, for this to be treated if it actually comes into South Africa. I mean, a place like the Tembisa Hospital, where children have died, you question how are we going to be ready to be able to handle this virus if it comes into South Africa. I mean, we, as much as China says that they have it under control, we must look at how South Africa is dealing with a simple thing like load shedding. You know, we're struggling to deal with electricity, to give electricity to the people. So how are we going to deal with a virus of this magnitude? And then you send people to hospitals where there have been incidents, something has happened within those hospitals.
Look, it's a matter of concern, but perhaps let's not belabor the point, because government has given these assurances. And actually, importantly, let's tell the viewers that this morning we're hoping to be joined by the Minister of Home Affairs, Aaron Motsoaledi, and he's coming on a different matter, but we're certainly going to ask questions around just how safe and secure are our borders. Sandile, perhaps let's look at the sports pages. What's happening?
Let's give you something a bit lighter. Just in terms of sports day, they've got Noah Amba knocking on Everett's door. That would be Sean Everett. He's, of course, the Sharks coach. Sanele Noah Amba was one of the stars of the SA Under-21 Baby Bok campaign last year at the World Cup in Argentina, 2019 Under-21 World Championship. And, of course, he scored the match winner, as we can see in the picture, and that's against the Bulls, and that snapped a 9-match losing streak against the Bulls in Super Rugby. And he's basically one of the stars that I'm pretty sure Rassie Erasmus will be looking at in terms of that scrum half position. And if you look at his record in terms of his tries, in terms of his contribution around the park, he's one of the leading lights in terms of the younger stars coming through. So it's still up in the air whether he will actually start against the Highlanders. That's the upcoming game for the Sharks. They've got Louis Schröder, who's the incumbent scrum half. But, I mean, if you're a betting man, you probably put your money on him coming on at some point based on his performances, not only this season, but last season for the Under-21 Boks.
Yeah. All right. It's a good thing that we seeing young blood.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's exactly what Russ is looking at. You need as many options as you can going forward in different positions just to have that sense of confidence as a coach.
And should we be talking about Russ still? Because we have a new coach now.
But Rassie is still the guy pulling the strings. That's the thing. He's the director of rugby. Yes, he's got Jacques Ninamba, who actually is his right-hand man since the 1990s. So you know it's going to be a bit of a conference-type coaching sets up where Rassie will probably give his suggestions, and then Jacques, being the head coach, obviously will say, well, maybe we can do it in a different manner. The assistants like Dion Davids, Mzwandile Stick can also come in with their opinions, but you've got to put your money on Rassie probably having the final say as a director of rugby.
All right, guys, thank you very much.